There are 15 forgotten superfoods that medieval farmers swore by, and the strange thing is they are still growing today, some of them a good deal closer to you than you would ever guess. And here's the honest truth of it. The fancy superfoods you pay good money for, the kale smoothies, the quinoa bowls, the little bags of berries that cost more than a week of groceries, they have nothing on the plants that carried whole medieval villages through famine and plague. Most of those old plants are still growing wild right now in the cracks of a driveway, out along a fence line, down by the creek, and some of them are likely sitting in your own backyard this very minute, waiting on you to know them again. And there is one plant near the very end of this list, the number one, that flat out beats every expensive superfood sitting on a store shelf today. It is the one folks spend their whole lives trying to kill. I will get to it, I promise you that, but you are going to want to walk with me all the way to the end for that one. My name is Amos, and for 60 years I have dug roots and gathered wild plants up in these mountains, the same ones my grandmother put in my hands before I could read. I am not a doctor, so nothing I tell you today is medical advice, just the plain lore of an old root man who has spent his life close to the ground. Now, before we go any further, I have to be honest with you. Only a very small percentage of the people who watch this channel are actually subscribed. If you love the old plants our grandparents and their grandparents lived on even half as much as I do, then do consider subscribing. It is completely free, and you can always change your mind later. It genuinely helps an old man keep making these. Right, then let us get into it. And let me be honest with you about something. We did not lose these plants because they stopped working. We lost them because we got proud. We paved over them, we sprayed them, we called them weeds and taught our children to pull them up. But the old people knew better. They knew that the ground gives freely to those who bother to look, and that the toughest, humblest little green thing growing in the ditch might just be worth more than anything you can buy. So let us count them down together, from 15 all the way to 1, and I will save the best for last. Number 15 is chickweed, that soft little mat of green with the tiny white star flowers that shows up in the cool of spring. Now folks step right over it, but in the old days chickweed was a lifesaver, because it filled what they called the hunger gap, that hard stretch between when the winter stores ran empty and the first crops came in. That was the time villages went hungry, and chickweed came up early and generous when almost nothing else would. It is packed with vitamin C, with iron, with calcium, the very things a body is starving for at the end of a long winter. And the old women used to mash it cool and lay it on a burn or a sore patch of skin to draw the heat out. Think about that for a moment. A plant that both feeds you and mends you, coming up on its own in the cold mud while the fine garden still slept. It cost nothing, it asked for nothing, and it very likely kept children alive through more than one hard march than we will ever have a record of. A weed, they call it now. Whatever you do, don't mow it all down before you know what you are throwing away. Number 14 is sorrel, and if you have never tasted it, you are in for a surprise because it has a bright, tangy, almost lemony snap to it, right there in a wild leaf. Medieval folks prized that sharpness, and not just for the flavor. That tang is the vitamin C talking, and in a world with no oranges in winter, sorrel was a spring tonic that drove off the aches and the bleeding gums we now call scurvy. They tucked it into soups, into sauces for fish, into the pot with whatever they had. A handful of a wild green, keeping a family well through the lean months. That is the kind of quiet wisdom we walked away from. Number 13 is watercress, the peppery little green that grows right in the clean running streams. And I will tell you, for something that grows wild in the water, it is one of the most nourishing plants you will ever put in your mouth. Ounce for ounce, it carries an astonishing load of vitamins, more of some of them than the vegetables you carry home in a bag. The old herbalists ate it by the fistful for strength and for clear skin, and they were not wrong to. But hear me on this, because it matters. Whatever you do, don't gather watercress from water you do not know is clean, because still or dirty water can carry things that will make you sick. Clean, cold, running water only. The old folks knew their streams. Number 12 is the dandelion, the plant you have been at war with your whole life, and here is the joke of it. That golden weed you dig out of the lawn and curse is very likely the most useful plant growing on your whole property. Every last bit of it feeds you. The young leaves, bitter and green, were eaten in spring to wake up the liver and clean out the winter sludge the way bitter things do. The flowers made a wine, and the root, dug in the fall and dried and roasted, made a warm dark drink when there was no coffee to be had. Nothing wasted. The old people looked at a dandelion and saw a full pantry. Number 11 is broadleaf plantain, And I do not mean the banana kind, I mean the low, flat rosette of ribbed leaves that grows right up through the gravel and the driveway where nothing else dares. The old people called it the mother of herbs, and they meant it. Crush a leaf and press it to a cut, and it helps stop the bleeding and calms the sting, which is why the soldiers of old carried it and called it the soldier's herb. The little seeds it throws up on those tall stalks work in your gut much the way psyllium does, that stuff they sell you in a tub at the pharmacy, and the young leaves cooked down feed you like spinach, all that growing in the crack of a parking lot. Number 10 is angelica, a tall, bold, hollow-stalked herb the monks grew in their gardens, standing head-high with great round heads of flowers. During the Black Death, when whole towns were dying and folks believed the sickness rode in on bad air, people carried the root of angelica pressed to their faces, trusting it to purify the very air they breathed. Now, they did not have it quite right about the air, but here is the strange thing. That root truly does hold compounds with real power against certain bacteria and viruses. The old belief had a seed of truth in it. They candied the green stems into a sweet treat for the children, and to this day that same plant is what gives many a fine gin and liqueur its flavor. Number 9 is horseradish, that fierce white root that will clear your head and bring water to your eyes. And here's the clever thing about it that the old cooks understood. The heat is not even awake in the root until you crush it. Cut it and grate it, and only then does the fire come alive. They packed it on the chest for a heavy cold to break up the congestion, and they served it alongside rich, fatty meat because it cut through the grease and helped the belly do its work. Best of all, you plant it once, and you have got it forever, because that root does not quit. A poor man's medicine chest, growing itself in the corner of the garden. Number 8 is the elderberry, the tree that gives you 2 gifts in 1 year. In the early summer come the great flat heads of cream-colored flowers, which the old folks steeped into a tea to bring down a fever and ease a cold. And in the fall come the dark purple berries, which were cooked down into syrups and cordials to carry a family through the coughing months of winter. But listen close, 'cause this one matters. Whatever you do, don't eat those berries raw. The raw berries and the leaves and stems will turn your stomach hard. They must be cooked. Cooked, they are an old and trusted friend. Raw, they will lay you low. The old people knew to always put them over the fire first. Number 7 is burdock root, that deep, stubborn taproot that drives down further than you would ever want to dig. The old herbalists called it a blood cleanser, and while that is an old-fashioned way of speaking, they were reaching for something real, for the way it seemed to help the body run clean and clear the skin. That long root is full of a special fiber that feeds the good life in your gut, the very thing the fancy doctors are only now catching up to. And it is no strange famine food either. To this day it is dug and peeled and cooked and eaten with real pleasure at many a table. A weed to some, a vegetable to those who know. Number 6 is lemon balm, a soft green leaf that smells of lemon when you brush your hand across it, and the old people called it the heart's delight. There is real history in this one because the great Emperor Charlemagne back in the early 9th century thought so highly of it that he ordered it planted in his royal gardens. And here the old wisdom and the new science shake hands, for lemon balm truly does calm a rattled mind and lift a low mood that has been tested and shown. It helps tired folks find their sleep, dabbed on a cold sore it fights the thing back, and the bees, oh the bees love it dearly. A little plant of peace, grown by emperors and grandmothers alike. Now this is the part I promised you at the very beginning. There is one plant still to come at number 1 that outshines every costly superfood on the shelf today. The very one folks spend a fortune and a lifetime trying to wipe out of their yards. Hold that thought because we are nearly there. But first, a few more you ought to know. Number 5 is flax, and this one gave the old world 2 things it could not do without. From the stalk came linen, the very cloth on their backs and their beds. And from the seed came food and medicine, tiny seeds packed full of the good fats, those omega-3s we now know are so precious and mighty hard to come by back before a man could get fish. They took it for stiff and aching joints, for dry skin, for a sluggish gut. It was so valued that in some places the taxes were paid in it, and that same Charlemagne ordered every royal farm in his lands to grow it. When an emperor makes a law about a seed, you had best believe that seed is worth knowing. Number 4 is good King Henry, which the old folks so lovingly called the poor man's asparagus, and it may be the most giving plant on this whole list. It hands you 3 harvests from a single planting. In spring you cut the young shoots and cook them like asparagus. In summer you pick the broad leaves and cook them like spinach, and come autumn you gather the seeds and grind them into a flour. 3 meals from one plant and it comes back on its own year after year, asking nothing of you. And here is a thing that will stop you cold. Good King Henry has been found still growing beside the stone foundations of villages that were abandoned more than 500 years ago. The people are long gone, their names forgotten, the roofs fallen in, but the plant they set by their door is still there, still green, still feeding whoever comes along. That is faithfulness of a kind we can scarcely imagine. Number 3 is the ground nut, the ground bean, a climbing vine that hides a string of protein-rich tubers down under the soil, holding up to 3 times the protein of a potato. The native peoples of this land lived on it clear through the hard winters, digging it when little else could be found. And as it grows, it feeds the very soil it stands in, pulling goodness out of the air and leaving the ground richer than it found it, so that a patch of it makes the land better just by being there. I always think of this one as the great what might have been, because a plant like that, so hardy and so nourishing and so generous to the earth, could have carried whole peoples through famines that instead took them by the thousand. It was there the whole time, quiet under the leaves. We just forgot to look down. Number 2 is einkorn, the ancient wheat, and this is the grandfather of all our grain, a plant folks have been growing for more than 10,000 years. Think on that. 10,000 years. It grows where the ground is poor, it stands up to drought, it shrugs off the blights that flatten the soft modern wheat, and it carries about 30% more protein than the wheat we grind today, along with more of the minerals a body needs. It is a simpler, older grain, closer to the way the good Lord first made it, and many a person whose stomach cannot abide modern bread finds they can sit easy with this one. Now I want to be plain with you, it is no cure, and I make no such promise. But there is a reason so many folks are seeking out the old grain again, and their bodies seem to know the difference even when the science is still catching its breath. We traded einkorn away for wheat that yields more and nourishes less, all for the sake of bigger harvest and cheaper bread. That is the whole sad story of our food, right there in a single seed. And now, here it is, the one I promised you from the very start, the plant that beats every high-priced superfood on the shelf. The weed you have cursed and pulled and sworn at your whole life long. Number 1 is the stinging nettle. Yes, the very one. Brush against it bare and it will bite you, and that is exactly why folks spend their lives trying to be rid of it, never once knowing what they are killing. Because cooked, that sting vanishes clean away, and what is left is one of the finest foods that ever grew from the earth. Now hear these numbers, because they are the whole reason I saved this one for last. The stinging nettle carries more iron than spinach. It carries more calcium than a glass of milk, and it gives you a complete protein, meaning every last building block your body needs, all of it out of a plant most people pay to have hauled to the dump. The old folks ate it in the spring to get through that same deadly hunger gap. They brushed the fresh sting across aching arthritic joints, believing it drew the pain out, and many swore by it. They spun the tough stalks into cord and drew a fine green dye from the leaves. Food, medicine, cloth, and color, all from the weed under your feet. And here's the part that ought to make you laugh and shake your head at the same time. People will drive to the store and pay good money, $10 and $15, for little tubs of green powder and bags of leaves flown in from the far side of the world, all to get the very iron and calcium and protein that is standing free in the fence row behind their own house, being sprayed and cursed and torn out by the root. That is the whole foolishness of it laid bare. Whatever you do, don't let another spring go by cursing the nettle. Learn it. Cook it, wear a glove, and gather it young in the spring, and simmer it just a few minutes to take the sting clean out, and you will never look at that plant the same way again. So there they are, the 15. And I want you to notice something about every last one of them, because it is the whole heart of the matter. Not one of these plants was ever fancy. Not one was rare, or exotic, or dear. They were the tough survivors, growing low and stubborn in the cracks of a hard and hungry world, asking for nothing, given by the ground for free, and here is the wonder of it. They outlasted the very people who forgot them. The lords are dust, the castles are ruins, the names are gone from the stones, but the nettle and the good King Henry and the little chickweed are still here, still green, still waiting patiently by the old foundations for someone to remember. That knowledge was never truly lost. It was only set down and walked away from, one busy generation at a time, until we forgot we ever knew it. And it is sitting there yet, patient as ever, in your backyard, in the ditch, along the fence, in the cracked corner of the parking lot, ready for you to stoop down and pick it back up. All it takes is one old man like me pointing, and one pair of eyes like yours learning to see. Now, I would love to hear from you, so tell me 2 things down in the comments. First, which of these 15 surprised you the most? And second, which one is already growing where you live, whether you knew it or not? I read them, and it does this old heart good. You look after yourselves now, and come walk the woods with me again real soon. Stay close to the ground. And before you go, let me leave you with this. If these plants could feed a village, wait until you see what they could heal. Next time, I am going to walk you through 10 medicinal plants that are so good for you it will astonish you. The very plants behind nearly a quarter of the medicine sitting in your pharmacy right now. You will not want to miss that one.